Welcome everybody to this Tour Tuesday webinar. This is our final series of virtual tours. We are going to be going back to in-person tours, which is very exciting. And for this series, this is our second tour of the 2021 to 2022 school year. We'll have 2 more tours after this. And we are honored to have Turell Group here with us. My name is Hillary Mankowski. I'm a project coordinator with Connected Lane County, and I will be your host today. And let's have Tarek, you can introduce yourself, and then Donovan.
Perfect. Well, my name is Tarek. I'm an account coordinator with Turell Group, and I basically client manage various of our clients, which basically just means I manage our relationships and make sure that they grow and thrive. And then I also help middleman a lot of the communication between our internal team as well as the external clients that we have.
Okay, great. I want to come back and ask you some questions about that.
Sure.
Donovan?
Yes, my name's Donovan. I am the project manager and senior video editor for our staff at Turell Group, and I also help with digital advertising. I run the Facebook ads and Google ads and stuff that Turell Group puts out.
Thanks. For those of you who are watching, just a reminder that you should have watched the recording of the Turell Group tour. It was a really great tour. I learned a lot watching it. So if you haven't yet watched it, I recommend going back and watching it after this. It might put some of the things that we talk about here in a little bit of context. Also, we cannot see or hear you as attendees. You could be picking your nose, we will not know. But please do take advantage of the chat function to ask any questions that you have during the tour. And we can ask these guys all sorts of questions about marketing and video production and yeah, any questions that you have. All right, so let's talk more about your current roles. Tarek, you started kind of talking about some things that maybe not everybody knew what you were talking about. So let's go back to that. How did you wind up in your current role? And then how did you, what was your career path getting to this point? And then we'll go a little bit deeper into what you actually do.
Okay, well, I'll start with my career path before I kind of dive into my current role. So coming out of high school, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I knew that I had certain strengths. I was a good communicator. I was a good writer. I enjoyed building relationships with people. I enjoyed talking to people. But ultimately, my question is how can I get paid to talk to people and just be a communicator and do what I'm naturally good at? And so I kind of pounded my head against the wall for a while, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I went to the University of Oregon and majored in public relations. But I actually didn't choose my major until my junior year because, again, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so, you know, I think I've made an all right living for myself. I've developed a solid career, and I had no idea what I was going to do going into college. So if there's anything you take away from that, I would say you don't have to have your career mapped out right now, nor do you have to have a set idea of what you want to do. I would just say try to focus on, what skills you have and trying to use those. But anyway, I majored in public relations, and my senior year, I interned at the Turell Group. Had a pretty successful internship, built some good relationships with both the people that I work here as well as some of our clients. And from there, I basically just kept growing and growing. I got a full-time position, and then my responsibilities kind of grew from there. And I've grown into this role that I'm in at now. And my role it's an interesting one. I'm kind of a little bit of a Swiss Army knife in a lot of ways. I'll do some writing sometimes. If I need to, I'll post things to social media, but my primary duties are kind of managing the relationships between our clients and our team. And that basically just means coordinating a lot of projects, communicating with clients to make sure we get all missing pieces we need from them, Donovan's a video editor, so if Donovan needs certain shots or needs some copy for a video or needs a thumbnail or something, I'll be the person who reaches out to a client to get those pieces. I also, as of recently, have started to help strategize projects with clients and kind of onboard new clients, as well as recruiting new clients and trying to sign new clients for our agency, and then getting their projects off the ground. And the way I like to look at it is when I meet with you, you have a little dream or a goal or a wish, and it's my job to help you kind of move through that and make that dream or goal or wish a reality.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Donovan, let's move on to you. So how did you wind up in your current role, and what was your sort of career path that brought you here?
It's been a total whirlwind in my life. Like we were talking a little bit about before this started, and I think like video and filmmaking and movies, that's really always been like the thing I wanted to do, like my dream job since I was like in middle school. I started like formally learning how to do that actually with a high school class that I took that was just my high school had like a 10-person class that was multimedia, and through that we learned Photoshop, Illustrator, like the whole Adobe suite, Premiere. We did a little bit of website coding, a little bit of this and that. Just basically I went through that class and I learned how to use a computer basically for media use of all sorts of stuff. And while taking that, the stuff that I really got interested in high school was making movies. And I would watch movies and go, how did they do that? Okay, I need to look up how they did this. And I learned a lot about it. And my friends and I also, whenever we could do it, we would try to make short films for class projects. So we would have to read The Scarlet Letter or like any other book and we're like, oh shoot, instead of a book report, let's just make a movie. Like, let's just do that and then make everybody in our class watch it. And through that, I learned how to edit video from then on. Yeah, I graduated high school. I actually majored in like 3 different things before I ended up in journalism in college. I was in college for 5 years, so I was kind of non-traditional. I started in music. I'm also a performer. I have instruments back here, as you can tell. That didn't work out. Then I went into computer science for a year. So I learned like a little bit of coding. That didn't work out because I'm awful at math. And then after that, I went into journalism because you boil down what video is, and it's kind of just you're making stuff. And in journalism, you write a lot. I went into kind of like TV news type editing and went like, I never actually wanted to do TV news, but like, I just need a degree. I just need to get out of here. And leaving college, the first job I took was at what's called a penetration testing firm, which is actually just like, it's computer hacking is what it is. We got hired to break into companies. We would try to hack their systems, and I learned how to write from that. From there, I did that for 2 years, and then I got a job at a marketing firm because I was good at writing and I could write ads and I knew how to use computers. So like, I did that for a year, and then this job position opened up, which was asking for actually a project coordinator position. To like just kind of do what Tarek's job is, of talking to clients, make sure things get all together. And then somehow they talked to me, looked at my skill set from computers to video to all of this weird amalgamation of skills that I came across just from things I was interested in. And Dana, our boss, was like, well, I think we could use that. Let's just make a job up for you. And I went, okay. She's like, yeah, I was thinking of starting doing video. Let's try that. And it just came out of nowhere. Like, video jobs are so hard to come across in Oregon. And at an interview for a totally different job, this kind of just fell in my lap. So like, that is my story of how I got here.
It's very interesting. I love that sort of meandering path of trying different things out and then figuring out that you really actually learned what you wanted to do in high school with video
Yeah.
editing and that's pretty awesome to discover that so early on. Also, Tarek, to go back to what you were talking about too, you mentioned that you had an internship with Turell Group. And so we, as Elevate, part of Connected Lane County, we provide internships for students in job shadows. So would you recommend that as a way of getting your foot in the door to a company?
Yeah, I think internships are a great way to get your foot into the door for a company, but they're also great resume builders. Even if your internship doesn't turn into a permanent job, I had several internships prior to interning at Turell Group, and the experiences that I gained in those internships ultimately made me qualified for an internship here. And so I would just say, if you're at all interested in marketing, or maybe it's even something totally outside of marketing, I would say try to go find internships, job shadows, talk to people who do that job, and really figure out whether or not you enjoy doing that. And if you do, just keep doing that stuff. And if you don't, that'll be a good sign for you to maybe pivot and look elsewhere.
Great. That was such a good plug. And you can contact me directly or Lizzie Gray, my coworker.
There you go.
All right, let's move on. What is the best part about working at Turell Group?
Man, there's a lot of things that I love about working at Turell Group. I would say my favorite thing is that we've grown a lot over the last couple years, and definitely grown quite a bit since I've been here. But we've still remained this culture where we're a pretty close-knit, almost family. We all have each other's backs. We're always there to support one another. And that just makes it really easy when you're working on stressful things. A lot of people might not think of marketing as stressful, but it can get really stressful at times. And we have to do rush projects. We have to do projects that we don't necessarily agree with. Sometimes we have to have difficult conversations with clients that aren't pleasant conversations to have, but they're conversations that need to happen. And so when you have a team behind you that just supports you and is always uplifting you, and when you have a bad day is willing to kind of listen to you complain for a while and not talk, just listen, is pretty great. And so I would say that's my favorite part.
Does that also include the ping pong table that you have in the office? I saw that on the video.
Yes, and so that all kind of ties back to this culture. We're a bit of a family, so we enjoy teasing each other. We enjoy challenging each other to ping pong matches. We enjoy spending time with one another. Each holiday, we have a holiday party, and spend time just making crafts and goodies. Of course, with COVID, a lot of those in-person activities have changed, but we still find ways to connect and just have fun together, really.
How about you, Donovan?
Yeah, everything Tarek said is totally on the ball. I think for me, compared to other jobs that I've had, the things that I appreciate here is I feel really trusted as an employee at Turell Group. The way that like the management style and attitude of the whole company is like, hey, the stuff you got to do, like we're trusting you to get it done. Reach out if you need help. But like if you want to work 8 to 12 and then take the whole afternoon off and come back 7 to 11 at night, that's okay. Just talk to us about it. Like like the work-life balance is really, really important to me. I'm a performer, and I very often have like, oh, like I have a rehearsal Monday through Friday, 4 to 8 o'clock at night. And a lot of other companies I've worked for will be like, absolutely not. Like, dude, you cannot do that. But here it's like every boss I talk to is like, oh yeah, like you need to do that. That's awesome. Like we will like be flexible for you to make that kind of stuff happen, and also I think Turell Group is really good about transparency, specifically with clients and the work that we do. I have worked at Tarek talked a little bit before about just like marketing as a whole in the structure, and it can be kind of grimy sometimes. like you look at like digital ads and stuff, and like ads following you across the internet, and just the whole industry at large, and pushing people to buy things. And it's really nice to be at an agency where like we care more about the people than like the dollars a lot of the time. That's just really refreshing, and I appreciate that. It lines up with like my personal values quite a bit.
Yeah, and I just want to build off that a little bit too. Is one of my other favorite things about Turell Group is just this commitment that we have to our community. Our boss, president, CEO, she's a wonderful human being, and she really focuses a lot on giving back to the community and making sure that all the work we do is legitimately meaningful. And if we don't find meaning or purpose in the work that we do, we just simply don't take it. And we've turned down plenty of big scale, large projects because we simply don't think that we're the right fit for that. And that's another great thing about working here is everyone shares the same values. We all have this deep care and love for our community and Lane County and Oregon as a whole, really. And so it's really nice to work in an environment where you're never going to be asked to do something that you're uncomfortable with doing from a morals or values perspective.
Like a great place to work. So speaking of being in high school, what could students do right now while they're still in high school to better prepare themselves for a job in marketing? Are there any clubs or extracurriculars that might be particularly helpful, whether it's either working in video or in client relations?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what you want to work in. Donovan and I work on the client end. Donovan works in video, but we also have designers, we have writers, we have photographers, videographers, project managers, all sorts of roles. So I would say just trying to figure out what is your strong suit and what skills you already possess and trying to grow those. For me personally, I always just enjoyed writing. I was okay at it. Wasn't necessarily great, but I was definitely okay at it. And then I just kept working at that. And that my proficiency in writing ultimately gave me a proficiency in speaking, which then allowed me to kind of build relationships and work in a client relations perspective. But I'm sure Donovan could probably talk about some of the more technical roles that we have at Turell Group.
Yeah, and like, so my background is pretty technical, as Tarek said, but also like most of the skills that I use, like the most valuable skill that I have in my job is communication. And knowing how to, like, if you're working in marketing, you're talking with clients and you have to explain a lot of things to them that, like, in layman's terms, like people can't normally understand. Like the skill that I have is like my grandmother does not understand how computers work, and she does not understand what my job is. And I have to kind of put that hat on sometimes when talking with clients. So like as far as like clubs that like students could do, like theater was huge for me, because it taught me like, here's how people communicate with each other. And I use those skills every single day, because if you're going to do something in marketing, you have to pitch it and you have to get it approved. You have to know how to tell people this is going to work and here's why, and I'm going to be confident talking about it. So if you can't public speak, like, I feel like marketing would be a really difficult career to be a part of. It would just be difficult because it's like, at the end of the day, you're trying to tell a client this is going to work, and if you don't feel secure in that, it's like out the window. It's just not going to work. But alongside the more technical side, like with video production, like the thing, and I think our designers would also concur with this too, is that like having a degree can matter, but the thing that matters the most is your portfolio and being able to have work samples to say like, this is what I can do for you. So starting a YouTube channel, making TikToks, being up to date on what like modern social media anything is. Like every single marketing company is looking for someone who's like 19 and can explain memes to them. Like they all need that. And I am kind of that person for Turell Group. It was like, guys, we should be on TikTok. Like, let's do this. Come on, like the kids love this. And it's difficult. Like I'm one of the youngest people here. Me and Tarek are two of the youngest people here. And it's been kind of eye-opening to see how essential that is. So yeah, that's a good point.
And one thing I would also add is just kind of leveraging some of the stuff you're already involved in. Like if you play sports, that the team working aspect, the accountability, this strive and drive to constantly get better and improve both yourself and those around you, I think is something that you can definitely take into marketing as well. And maybe it's not sports, maybe it's I don't know, a chess team or whatever it may be. Just some of those skills of accountability and trying to push yourself and being competitive are very vital, I would say, in marketing.
I really like that idea of theater or sports or some kind of club really helping out in marketing in ways that I didn't really think about. Ooh, this is a good one. In your opinion, what's the biggest misconception about the marketing, didn't read the last one, industry?
In my opinion, the biggest misconception of marketing, and this might be more of a misconception of marketing, advertising, and communications as a whole, but is that it's evil. I think I see a lot of that. And Donovan mentioned earlier, how people see ads and the way Facebook or Google might maybe track you and build personas for, whatever persona you might fit in. And so everyone gets really scared of stuff like that and thinks it's evil and it's intrusive on your privacy. But really, marketing can be used for a lot of great things. We work with numerous nonprofits and we help them get, their messaging out there that wouldn't otherwise be, pushed out in front of you. And that ultimately helps them grow their organizations, expose themselves to potential clientele, and then also gain donors, which ultimately the, funds that they get from donors are what allows nonprofits to function. At the same time, for-profit companies, a lot of for-profit companies have services or products that are life changers that will legitimately help you, and just being able to spread that and educate people about that is pretty cool. And I would say marketing is not always evil. It definitely can be evil, and there are agencies that participate in evil marketing practices. I think Donovan touched on that a little bit, but not all marketing is evil. Not all marketers are necessarily trying to sell you something.
That's such a good question, because there's so,
Yeah.
like I've learned so much in my time here about just how things work. And like, okay, I'm gonna go to the bullet points that I wrote about in prep for this, because okay, first thing, I always when I got into this, I assumed that everybody that worked in a marketing agency knew exactly what they were doing, and that's just not true. And it's not to say they're not professional, not to say that the industry is filled with buffoons. That's not true. But the base level of marketing, at the low, trying to get word out about a product, say you take a step to make something that assumes that, people will connect with this. But there's no possible way to tell 100% that people are going to like something you put out. You just have to do it and fail forward. That's my whole job, is just make stuff, throw it at the wall. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, we'll take that. Let's revise that. And it's you have to be really vulnerable and open to constructive criticism to do that kind of stuff. Just like with any creative job, that's a really important skill to have. And the first 100 times you make something, people are probably not going to like it. There's going to be problems with it. But I just think that knowing that going in is really important. But I think what that means for fresh faces to the industry, coming in is that things are always changing and adapting to kind of what our culture is, what popular media is. Like the whole industry is ready for new voices at all times to come in and take it at a new direction because people are always changing. And in that, I think it's great. Like, I think any person is like a great asset to a marketing company because a different voice always makes things better. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you both. Okay. In your opinion, what's the best thing about working in marketing?
So, wow, there's a lot of things that I love about working in marketing. I'd say one of the best things is just getting the ability to work with a variety. And of course, this depends on whether you work in-house marketing or an agency or a firm. But working for an agency, we get to touch a lot of different things. So we get to see cool new products. We get to try new foods. We get to travel to different places. We get to interact with various types of people from all sorts of backgrounds. And I would just say the various experiences you're introduced through in marketing is one of the best things. It can be stressful at times because you never know what's coming, nor do you know what you're walking yourself into. But that also adds to some of that excitement. And there's definitely a little bit of, adrenaline rush when you're heading into maybe a meeting with a potential client that you have no idea how that's going to go or what it's going to turn into. So I would say that's one of my favorite parts of working in marketing, just all the variety of things you get to touch and see and do.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And I think my favorite thing about marketing is like the people we get to talk to and the stories that we get to tell. Gosh, what's it good? Like we do this thing every year where we create these award videos for an award ceremony that is for all of the entrepreneurs in Oregon. They give awards out from like the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network. So there's like hundreds of these small business owners, and we get to interview people coming in who are like, tell stories about, well, the one that struck me was like this woman made a brand and she said, they don't make boxing equipment for women, period. I did that. I'm filling the hole in that market. And I was like, what? They don't? She's like, no, like women have to use like kids boxing equipment. And I was like, I never would have heard that or like learned about that unless I was in this job. And like, I don't, like in past jobs, like I kind of sit in an office in a corner, and in this one, I feel pretty fortunate to be able to like hear stories and craft them and get them out to the world. It just feels good to get that out there.
So Turell Group sounds like a really great place to work. The culture, it sounds like they sort of created a role for you, Donovan. And I'm curious what kind of opportunities for growth there are at Turell. And Tarek, you sort of talked about how like your role might be expanding a little bit. So if you guys could talk about that.
Absolutely. So I started at Turell Group as an intern, which is probably the lowest rung on the ladder you can come in at, other than maybe a volunteer. And so, and from there, I've, grown quite a few rungs, and now I have my own client portfolio, and I get to kind of more or less run my own client accounts. And so I would say there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for growth within Turell Group. It's all just about showing the passion to want to grow, showing the willingness to get better. Donovan mentioned the phrase fail forward earlier today. And I think that's a big thing. You're not always going to know what you're doing. You're not always going to get everything right, but it's the idea of learning from your mistakes, learning from your failures, and not repeating those same mistakes and trying to avoid those failures moving forward. And if you can do all of those things, I think the sky's the limit at Turell Group. We've had plenty of team members, come in at at a position that, you know, they were well qualified to do and happy to do, but ultimately they had strengths in different positions and they were able to grow into some of those other positions based on, you know, the strengths and the willingness to work towards that.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that like all of the promotions and such that I've like seen at Turell Group have all been internal. Like we have never, I don't think we've ever hired somebody in the 3 years I've been here to be like a department manager who wasn't at a lower rung before. I could be wrong about that, but at least in the areas which I work, like everybody who is becoming like managers or executive anything are people who like could walk the walk and have proven like, hey, they know what they're doing and they've like been a part of that culture and worked their way up like that. And I kind of take that for granted. And just hearing about it, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, I don't think that was ever the way anywhere else I've ever worked. They've always like brought people in from the outside and like kind of slammed people off to the side who've been there for like a decade. But yeah, I definitely think that there's that potential for growth. I mean, I started out as, well, on the website, my job title still is digital specialist. That will be updated soon. But now I manage like a video department in 3 years and have had pretty good growth with that. So feel lucky for that.
Next question. Do you have to stay on top of current trends, culture, fads, that sort of thing? And if so, how do you do that? I mean, you talked about this a little bit with like, you know, coming in, talking about TikTok and things that the younger generations are using, but how do you, if you become an old fuddy-duddy, how do you start to learn about those things?
So that's one thing that's great about
Oh,
marketing and
man.
advertising and communications is there's always going to be room for young people to come in and get a job and have their voices heard because they are connected to these things a lot better than older folks are. But, you know, as you get older, you still, if you want to work in this industry, you still have to have somewhat of a baseline knowledge of what's going on around you. And so a lot of that comes from just reading current events, staying on top of whatever's happening in the media. As depressing and frustrating as it can be sometimes to watch news or read news, it is important to educate yourself. And I think at the same time, you know, listening to opinions that maybe you don't necessarily agree with, because those opinions might inform you on an upcoming trend or an upcoming fab or something that's totally outside of your own social circle or interest lane, but is something that is ultimately going to be extremely important for you to be knowledgeable about in the future.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's pretty important right now in like digital media, advertising, anything to be pretty online. I spend, but okay, actually, let me take this in a different way. You should be extremely online, but also set limits for yourself. Because when I started this job, I was on Twitter like 4 hours a day and just felt like I need to be the person who can like inform everybody about this because I'm like the new young blood coming in. Like I gotta talk about what's going on in the media, and that was not good for my mental health. Like to sit on Twitter, Reddit, social media, and just like look at people being angry for 4 hours a day. It's important to know what's going on. And I think like everybody can bring a good perspective about what's going on. But also just be aware of your mental health. Like nothing is ever worth like just looking at like the worst people in the world on the internet for hours a day. But yeah, as far as like platforms, like there are publications that I've used, like working in digital ads, there's websites that will specifically boil down like these are the important things to read for the week, and I've tried to do that. I also like podcasts about the industry. There's some really good ones about digital media marketing that are quick and to the point. Yeah, I do think it's pretty important to be up to date. And our team, like the video team especially, kind of struggles with it because we make a lot of videos, and it's difficult to slow down sometimes and actually look at what's happening in the industry and like be informed about stuff, because sometimes our clients will come up to us with stuff and we're like, oh, I don't know, I've never heard of that, and that's not good. You want to be the expert on it. So yeah, I do think it's important.
I would just add to that too, when you're on social media, making a conscious effort to, you know, see and hear and look at and interact with things that, you know, are different and new and interesting to you, but at the same time also not getting into any of the toxic trends of like arguing with people in comments or pushing for your point. A guilty pleasure of mine is going on Twitter or Facebook and reading comments. And I won't reply. Some of them will really get me going, and I'll have plenty of things to say, but I just can't do it for my own mental sanity and health. But still reading those things and taking it in and trying to legitimately understand where this person's coming from, even if it's something that you completely disagree with or can't imagine doing anything similar to this person. But again, as Donovan said, just making sure you set limits for all of that stuff as well is very important. And
also be careful what you post online, because when my boss has come to me saying like, should we hire this person? Very first thing I'm going to do is see if they have a public facing Twitter and see like, okay, are they like spewing some stuff that doesn't line up with our company culture? Like what, like it won't, that stuff like that doesn't make like the final decision. But the stuff that you put, especially today, like the footprint that you put out online, especially for a marketing company, like we work in that. Like, of course, we're going to check that stuff out.
We will find you. If you exist on
yeah,
we will find you and we will look at you before we even contemplate hiring you.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, I think I remember when I was younger, it was always really cool to post a picture with a beer or whatever it may be. As cool as it may seem and as fun as it might be to post whatever, whether it's whatever kind of illicit uses you may have or do, don't post that stuff publicly. Just don't do it. It might be cool and fun for now, and you might get a lot of likes or some comments, but it's really not worth it in the long term. And if you do have that stuff, I would just say trying to, you know, clean it up and delete it before you apply for jobs.
Yeah, I think that is such good advice for especially students who are in high school right now, thinking about their future careers. So listen, there's been a lot of really great nuggets that you guys have dropped here. Hopefully everybody heard all those, that like figuring out what you have out in the world is super important to, I would say, a lot of different, not just marketing, but a lot of different businesses that are hiring. And also things that you can do. You both mentioned things that you can do in high school right now, theater, different clubs, teams, and figuring out the skills that you really enjoy pursuing, or hobbies that you enjoy pursuing in high school is really great. So we will wrap it up with one last question. Where can students learn about your company's job openings? And do you have any current job openings now?
We just posted one like today. I believe there, if you go to turellgroup.com and also follow us on LinkedIn, we post job openings there. And I believe there's a project coordinator position that just opened up. There's a jobs tab on the website. I'm looking at it right now. Project coordinator, research and marketing. And that is our only job opening right now. But I'm sure that will change in the future because we've been growing pretty quick in the last 3 years here.
And I would also say, if you have a place you're interested working at, whether that's Turell Group or another marketing communications advertising agency out there in the world, or even if it's something that has nothing to do with that, maybe you're really interested in being a chef somewhere, or you want to be a retail manager at, I don't know, Macy's or something. I really hope Macy's isn't super uncool. If it is, I'm sorry.
A little bit uncool, Eric.
It is a little bit uncool. I will say I don't mind Macy's, but all that being said, I would say
Joking
reaching
aside.
out to these places when you're younger and just telling them, hey, I'm interested. Can I come in and job shadow someone? Do you guys have any open internships? Because a lot of places might not have job openings right now, but they'd be more than willing to connect with you and give you an insight in what they do. And that's a great foot in the door for you, because if you make a good initial impression on those folks when they do have a job opening, maybe they don't post it to their website. Maybe they just directly reach out to you and are like, hey, we have this job opening. Are you interested in applying? And worst case scenario, even if it's a terrible experience, you at least got to get your foot in the door a little bit and see what it's about. So I would just highly encourage everyone, if you're interested in working somewhere, send that company an email. Most places have, a general contact form on their website, or you can find contact information for someone at the company and just let them know, hey, I'm interested. Can I find out more? Do you have any internships? Do you have job shadow opportunities? Things of that sort.
And you can also contact us directly at Connected Lane County. We set up job shadows. Our next round of job shadows will be opening in January. And we will reach out directly to any organization that you're interested in to set up a job shadow. I want to thank you both, Tarek and Donovan, for your time today, coming on, doing the tour, and then answering all these questions. Thank you to the educators and the students who tuned in to this tour, this Q&A. This will be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Check it out, share it with all your friends because it's so cool. We talked about a lot of great things here. Thanks for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.